Welcome to my channel. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt your life is going in the wrong direction, and no matter how hard you try, nothing changes? Maybe you feel stuck in the same routine every day. Maybe you feel your dreams are too far away. But what if I told you there is one day that can change everything? In this video, I will tell you about the day I took control of my life and changed my destiny. And I will show you how you can do the same, step by step, in simple English. So stay with me until the end, because this story might be the start of your new life. Chapter 1. The day everything felt lost. I remember that day very clearly because it felt like the lowest point of my life. And sometimes when you are at the lowest point, you can only see darkness around you, and you believe that nothing will ever change. And that was exactly how I felt when I woke up that morning, tired, heavy, and with no energy to even get out of bed. Because every day looked the same and every dream felt impossible, and I told myself maybe I was not meant for anything special. Maybe I was just supposed to live an ordinary life with no joy, no success, and no meaning. And these thoughts made me feel even weaker inside, but I still got up and walked outside because life does not stop, and I went to work where everything felt boring and empty, and people around me spoke about their own plans and goals. But in my mind, I was thinking I had no control over my life. I was just moving because time was moving, and when I came home, I looked in the mirror, and I did not even recognize the person I saw, because the face looked tired, the eyes had no spark, and the heart felt heavy with sadness. And in that moment, I thought about how many times I had tried before to change. How many times I promised myself to study, to improve, to build something new. But every time I failed, I gave up too quickly. I listened to the voices around me that said I was not good enough, that I could not make it. And I believed them, and when you believe that kind of voice, it becomes your truth. So my truth was failure, my truth was weakness, and my truth was giving up. And that night, I sat on my bed and I asked myself a simple but painful question. I asked, is this really my life? Is this how I will spend the next 10, 20, 30 years? Just surviving, just waiting, just feeling powerless? And the question hurt me more than the answer, because the answer was yes. If I keep living this way, then nothing will change. My destiny will not change. And I will remain in this circle of hopelessness forever. And I thought about how many dreams I had when I was younger. Dreams of learning, of speaking English confidently, of traveling, of working in a good place, of helping my family. But those dreams were now like broken pieces lying on the floor, and I felt too weak to pick them up. So I cried that night, not because of one failure, but because I had allowed failure to control my whole story. And as I closed my eyes, I told myself maybe tomorrow will be the same. Maybe tomorrow will also bring nothing. But deep inside, very deep, there was a small voice, almost silent, that said, it does not have to be this way, but I was too tired to listen. So I went to sleep believing that my life was lost, not knowing that this pain was actually the beginning of a new story, a story that would lead me to the day I finally took control of my life and changed my destiny. Chapter 2. The Moment of Realization. The next morning, I woke up with the same heavy feeling, but something was different, because even though my body felt weak, my mind kept repeating the small voice I had heard the night before, the voice that whispered, it does not have to be this way. And for the first time in a long time, I listened to it and I thought, what if this voice is right? What if my life is not decided by my failures? What if I am the one who can decide? And as I sat on the edge of my bed, looking at the floor, I felt a sudden spark of truth, like the world stopped for a moment to show me something clear. And the truth was simple but strong. No one was coming to change my life for me. No teacher, no friend, no family, no magic opportunity, only me. And that thought was both scary and powerful, because it meant if I continued to do nothing, then nothing would change. But if I decided to do something, then everything could change. And as I dressed for work, I kept thinking about this idea. And when I looked in the mirror again, I did not see just a tired face. I saw a person who had been waiting too long for someone else to write his story. And in that moment, I realized the pen was always in my hand. I had simply refused to write. And I remembered all the times I gave up too early, all the times I stopped learning because it felt hard, all the times I listened to the wrong voices instead of my own. And I understood that this was the real reason I was stuck. Not because I was weak, but because I had surrendered control. And when you give away control, you give away your future. But when you take it back, even in the smallest way, you begin to change your destiny. And this realization was so clear that it almost shocked me, because for years, I believed my life was the result of fate, of luck, of people around me. But now I saw that my life was the result of my choices, my daily choices, small or big, and suddenly I felt a little stronger inside. Because if choices created my destiny, then I could make new choices. I could start fresh. I could pick even one small action and it would begin to shift the direction of my life. And I remember walking outside that day, hearing the sounds of the street, the voices of people, the movement of the world, and for the first time in years, it felt like the world was not against me. It was waiting for me. It was waiting for me to stand up and say, I choose my life. And as I walked to work, I thought deeply about what that choice should be, what first step I should take, because I knew I could not change everything in one day, but I also knew if I did not change something today, I might never change at all. And that thought gave me both fear and hope, but above all, it gave me responsibility. And that responsibility was heavy, but it also made me feel alive because I realized this was the moment. This was the day when I finally opened my eyes and saw that I was not trapped forever. I was only waiting for myself to wake up and take control. Chapter 3: The First Step of Control. When I came home that evening after work, I sat on my bed and I thought about everything again. And this time, I did not feel like a victim. I felt like someone standing at a door, and I understood that the door to my new life would only open if I decided to push it. So I asked myself, what is the first small thing I can do right now to prove that I have control? And many ideas came to my mind, like studying more, changing my job, or speaking to new people, but those felt too big. And I knew if I tried to do everything at once, I would fail again. So I told myself, start small, very small, just one step, because even one small step forward is better than staying in the same place. And after thinking for a while, I decided that my first step would be to wake up 1 hour earlier every morning. And in that 1 hour, I would not waste time. I would not touch my phone. I would not complain. I would simply use that hour to do something useful, something that could build me, maybe reading, maybe writing, maybe practicing English. And this decision felt strange because it was such a simple thing, just 1 hour, but inside it felt like a mountain. Because all my life I woke up late and wasted my mornings. And now I was challenging myself to break this habit. And that night, I set my alarm, and I promised myself I would not hit snooze when I would not give excuses. I would respect my decision. And when the alarm rang the next morning, my eyes were heavy, my body was lazy. My mind told me just 5 more minutes, but I remembered the voice that said, it does not have to be this way. And I remembered the realization that my life was my choice. So I pushed myself out of bed, and as I stood up, I felt like I had won a small battle. And in that quiet morning, I opened a book in English, and I read slowly, word by word, sentence by sentence. And it was not easy, but it was peaceful. And I felt proud because for the first time in a long time, I was doing something for myself, not because a teacher told me, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. And that hour gave me energy for the whole day. And when I went to work, everything still looked the same. But inside me, something was different because I knew I had taken control of 1 hour. And if I could control 1 hour, maybe one day I could control one life. And that night when I went to bed, I smiled because it was only one small step, but it was mine. I had chosen it, I had done it, and that made me feel stronger than any praise from other people. And slowly I began to understand that this is how life changes, not with one big miracle, but with many small steps, repeated every day. And I promised myself I would continue, no matter how small the step, because each one was proof that I was writing my own story again. Chapter 4: The Struggle and the Fear. At first, everything felt exciting because I was doing something new and I believed I had finally taken control. But very soon the real struggle began because change is never easy. And after a few days of waking up early and using that hour to read and practice, I started to feel the weight of my old habits pulling me back. My body wanted to sleep, my mind wanted comfort, and the voice of doubt returned, whispering that one small step would not change anything, whispering that I would soon give up just like before. And sometimes I even listened to that voice and asked myself if I was wasting my time, because nobody around me cared if I woke up early. Nobody noticed that I was practicing. Nobody clapped for me or told me I was doing well. And it was in those moments that fear grew inside me, fear that I was still the same weak person, fear that I would never change. And one morning I almost stayed in bed. I almost told myself, it does not matter. But then I remembered why I started. I remembered that this time I was not doing it for others. I was doing it for myself. And if I gave up again, then I would be lying to myself again. And that thought hurt more than tiredness. So I stood up and forced myself to continue. But the struggle was not only inside me, it was also around me. Because some people began to notice small changes and they laughed. They said, "Why are you wasting time reading in the morning? It will not give you a better life." And others told me, "You cannot change who you are. You have always been like this." And their words were sharp. They cut deep. And I started to doubt again. But then I realized something important. I realized people speak from their own fears, not from your truth. And if I listened to them, then I would live their life, not mine. So I decided to close my ears to negativity and open my heart to the small progress I was making, even if it was invisible to others. And yes, there were nights when I cried quietly, nights when I felt too small against the big world, nights when I almost quit. But every time I pushed myself through the pain, I grew a little stronger. I grew a little more confident, and I saw that the struggle and the fear were not signs that I was failing. They were signs that I was changing, because the road to a new destiny is always full of storms, and the only way to reach the other side is to keep walking through them. And once I understood this, I did not see my struggle as a punishment anymore. I saw it as a test to see if I really wanted a new life. And every day I passed that test, even in a small way, I felt more alive, more in control, and more ready for the future that I was building step by step. Chapter 5: The Breakthrough. After weeks of waking up early, reading, practicing, and pushing myself through the doubts and fears, something began to change, not in one big dramatic moment, but in many small, quiet ways that slowly grew into something powerful. And the first sign came when I realized my reading speed in English was faster than before. Words that once confused me now made sense. Sentences that felt heavy before now felt lighter. And I noticed I was remembering new words without forcing myself. And this made me smile because it was the first proof that my effort was working. And then another moment came when I was speaking to someone and I used a word I had learned from my morning reading. And the person understood me. And they even said my English was improving. And though it was just one sentence, it felt like a big victory inside me. Because for the first time I saw that the hours I was giving to myself were not wasted. They were building me slowly, brick by brick. And with every small result, my belief grew stronger. And one morning, when the alarm rang, I did not feel like it was a punishment anymore. I felt excited to wake up because I knew that hour belonged to me. And it was during one of those mornings that I had the biggest breakthrough because as I was reading, I suddenly felt different. I felt calm. I felt free. I felt like I was no longer the weak person who waited for life to change. I was the person changing it with my own hands, and that feeling was more powerful than any result because I finally understood that I was not trapped, I was not helpless, I was not lost, I was in control, and with that control, I could create new habits, new skills, new opportunities, and new confidence. And it showed in my daily life too, because at work I was more focused, I spoke with more courage, I stopped complaining about problems, and instead started looking for solutions, and even the people who once laughed at me began to notice something different. They could not explain it, but they could feel it. And inside me, I knew exactly what it was. It was the strength that comes when you prove to yourself that you can keep a promise to yourself. And this strength grew every day. And I realized that this was the real meaning of breakthrough. It was not just speaking better English or learning faster. It was discovering the person I had always wanted to be, the person who does not give up, the person who does not wait for others, the person who chooses his own path. And as I walked home one evening, looking at the sunset, I felt proud because I knew I had crossed a line. I was no longer living my old story. I was now writing a new one. And that new story was the story of how I took control of my life and started to change my destiny. Chapter 6: The New Path and the Message to You. When I look back now, I can see how one small decision changed everything. Because the day I decided to wake up earlier and give myself that 1 hour was the day I took control of my life, and from that point, my destiny began to change step by step. Not with magic, not with luck, but with daily choices. And soon, I was not just reading in the morning, I was also writing my thoughts, practicing speaking with confidence, listening carefully to English conversations, and even trying to help others who wanted to learn. And every action gave me a new sense of direction, a new belief that my life was finally in my hands. And I noticed that my old fears began to fade, the fear of failure, the fear of people's opinions, the fear of not being enough, because I had faced them and I had walked through them. And now I could see that they were never as big as I thought. They were only shadows that disappeared. When I kept moving forward, and this gave me courage to dream bigger, to think about goals I had once buried, and even to take opportunities I used to reject out of fear. And the more I trusted myself, the more the world seemed to open its doors. And I realized destiny is not something written far away in the sky. Destiny is written by every choice we make today. And if you choose to stay in the same place, then your destiny will be the same. But if you choose even one small step in a new direction, then your destiny will change. And this truth is something I want to share with you, because I know maybe you feel the same way I once felt. Maybe you feel stuck. Maybe you think you cannot learn. Maybe you believe success is for others, but not for you. But let me tell you what I have learned. That is not true. You can change. You can grow. You can create a new path, but it will not start tomorrow or next year. It will start the day you decide to take control. And you do not need to take a big step. You just need to take one small step and then repeat it every day. And very soon you will see the difference. You will feel stronger. You will feel alive. And you will look in the mirror and finally recognize the person you always wanted to be. Because that person is already inside you, waiting for you to wake up. And this is the message I want you to remember, that the road to a new life begins with one choice, and you are the only one who can make that choice. And now, before we end, I want to ask you something. Are you ready to take control of your life today? Are you ready to start building your new destiny with one small step? If yes, then begin right now. Do not wait. And if this story gave you hope, then please subscribe to my channel, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments. Because every time you join, every time you learn, you are not only supporting me, You are also supporting yourself. You are proving that you are ready to take control. And remember this always. Your destiny is not fixed. It is created. And the power to create it is already in your hands. And now, I want to ask you, are you ready to take control of your life? If yes, then start today with one small step. Maybe it's learning one English word. Maybe it's writing one sentence. Maybe it's deciding to believe in yourself. And if this story inspired you, please subscribe to my channel, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments. Because every time you learn, every time you speak, you are building your new destiny.